This video is going to be all on the basic angles questions that come up quite early in the foundation paper. So firstly, what they could do is they could give you an angle and ask you to measure it. In order to measure angles, we need to use a protractor. Now here is my protractor on the board. You can get full circle protractors that look a little bit like that. But because half circle protractors are more common and most people have them, I'm going to do all my measuring using one of these. Okay, so there's a couple of bits that we need to know about the protractor. Firstly, the origin of the protractor. Now this is this part here. Okay, it is the crosshairs of the protractor down the bottom. This is where we're going to be putting our protractor most of the time to line up our angles. The next thing we need to know about a protractor is that they have two scales. First, we have an outside scale, which starts here at 0. And we have an inside scale, which starts here at 0 as well. One is for measuring angles from left to right, and the other is for measuring angles from right to left. Now, the other important thing on a protractor is the 0 line. Now, the 0 line runs down the bottom of the protractor there. Now this again is going to be used with the origin to line up our protractor. Okay, so back to my question where I want to measure some angles. All right, so I'm going to firstly start off by measuring angle A. Now what I need to do is I need to start off by putting my origin, which you remember was the center of the protractor, on the corner of my angle. So there I'm putting my origin on the corner of my angle. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to line up my 0 line with one of the lines of the angle. Now it doesn't matter which, but as you can see here, I've got the bottom line matching with the 0 line. Now at this point, I need to be looking at which scale to use. Now the important thing to note is that we always use the scale that starts from 0. So here I'm going to be using my outside scale because my line is on 0 there. So using my outside scale, looking up that way, I can see that I get to 10, 20, 30, 40, and then counting all the small individual bits after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I've got an angle of 46 degrees. Right, now I'm going to measure angle B. So again, what I need to do to start with is put my origin at the corner of my angle here. Now the other thing I need to do is make sure that my 0 line is all lined up, which it is. And this time, if you notice, the 0 is on the inside scale. So I need to use the inside scale to work this out. Okay, so counting around the inside scale, you can see I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, and 130, which is here. Now I'm going to count all the individual units, 131, 132, 133. So B equals 133 degrees. Okay, so finally I'm going to measure angle C, which is a reflex angle. Now this is the hardest angle to measure, okay, but there is a little trick to doing this with a half protractor. Okay, so I'm going to line up my origin and I'm going to rotate my protractor around so that the 0 line is going to measure the missing part, the bit that is not green on here. So as you can see here, I'm going up 10, 20, 30, 40, counting the small individual units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this missing angle here is 46 degrees. So how does this help me work out angle C? Well, I know that a full turn is 360 degrees. So if I have 360 degrees, and I take away my 46, I'll get my missing angle C. So using the column method to take away, borrowing, 10 take away 6 is 4, 5 take away 4 is 1, 3 take away nothing is 3. So that means that C must equal 314 degrees. Now, measuring angles is really easy to practice. All you need to do is put two lines meeting at a point and get your protractor out and measure it. There's always two angles to measure. One will be the small ones, and there will always be a harder angle like C to measure as well. Notice that every single time you measure both of them, they'll always add up to 360 degrees. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go over is a couple of special names and properties of angles. Now, all of these need to be learnt. So first off, we've got small angles here, which we call acute. Now, that's quite easy to remember because small things are generally quite cute. So acute angles are small angles. Now, we can give numbers to these acute angles, and they are 0 to 90 degrees. The next size up is what we call an obtuse angle. The degrees for an obtuse angle are between 90 and 180. The last type of angle is the biggest angle that we could get, and it's called a reflex angle. That's where the angle is turned more than 180 degrees, but we're limited to 360 degrees because that is a full turn. Another couple of special names to know is a right angle is 90 degrees, and it's usually depicted by a little square. The other thing that can tell you that they're a right angle is if the sides are called perpendicular. Perpendicular sides are sides that meet at a right angle. The other thing to know is this phrase parallel sides. Now, parallel sides get asked for quite a lot. They're depicted by arrows on lines, and these are lines that are never going to meet no matter how long you draw the line. Now, an example of this is train tracks. And in fact, if you look around the world, you'll see that there are parallel lines everywhere. Now, here is a question that's quite typical for the beginning of a foundation paper. You can copy the diagram down if you want to, or you can just see if you can answer these questions in your head. But pause the video and see if you can get an answer for all 5 of these questions. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at that. I'm just going to quickly run through the answers here. So first off, what type of angle is marked by the letter X? Well, this is the angle here. If you notice, it's a small angle, and small angles are called acute. Remember that small things are usually cute. What type of angle is marked by the letter Y? Well, Y is the biggest type of angle, which we call reflex. Now, question C is actually asking you to mark with a letter O an obtuse angle. Now, hopefully you're able to spot a couple of different obtuse angles. There are many to choose from. There is one here, so you could have chosen one there. There's one here, you could have chosen one there. And in fact, there's one up here as well, which you could have chosen. So if you'd chosen any of those 3, give yourself a tick. Okay, question D asks you to mark with arrows a pair of parallel sides. Now again, there are 3 parallel sides that you could have chosen 2 of. So the first one is down the bottom here, second one was this one here, and lastly you could have chosen this line at the top here. If you'd chosen any 2 of those, you would have got a mark. Okay, lastly, they want you to mark with a letter R a right angle. Now, there's only one on the diagram, and that is here. So we can draw a little square and mark with an R the right angle. The next thing we're going to look at is calculating the size of angles without measuring. So in order to do this, we need to know a couple of angle properties. And the first one I've got at the top here, angles on a straight line add up to 180. So whenever you see a straight line split by a line, then those 2 angles that you've just made will add up to 180. So here in my example, I want to try and find the angle X. So the way I do this is I just do 180 take away 60, which was my other angle. Use the column method to work this out. 0 take away 0 is 0, 8 take away 6 is 2, 1 take away 0 is 1. So X equals 120 degrees. Okay, likewise, if you've got more than one angle, so here in the second example for Y, I've got 3 angles that are going to add to 180. So I'm going to start by adding up the two angles that I've been given, again using the column method. 0 and 5 is 5, 1 and 7 is 8. And now what I'm going to do is take that value away from 180. So borrowing, 10 take away 5 is 5. Again, I've got to borrow. 17 take away 8 is 9. So that means y is 95 degrees. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can work out the size of angle A, B, and C down the bottom here. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at those three, so I'm just going to run through the answers now with you. So first off, for A, I need to do 180 and take away 70. Again, the column method is probably the best one to use for this. 0 take away 0 is 0, 8 take away 7 is 1, 1 take away 0 is 1. A has to be 110 degrees. For B, exactly the same thing, only this time the straight line is tilted. So I'm going to do exactly the same method I've done before. 180, take away 142, borrow from the 8, 10 take away 2 is 8, 7 take away 4 is 3, 1 take away 1 is 0. So that means that B is 38 degrees. Okay, finally, I've got three different angles here. So I'm going to start by adding up the two angles that have been given, 15 and 55. Okay, so 5 and 5 is 10, 1, 5 and 1 is 7. Now that I know that those two angles add up to 70, I'm going to take that away from 180. So 180 take away 70 is 110. So that means C is 110 degrees. In this last section, we're going to look at another property of angles, and that is that angles meeting at a point add up to 360 degrees. Now, another way of saying this is that a full turn is worth 360 degrees, which we used earlier when we were measuring our reflex angles. Okay, so the strategy for these sorts of questions is basically exactly the same thing as the straight lines, only this time, instead of taking away from 180, we're going to take away our angles from 360. Okay, so looking at the first example, I'm going to treat this exactly as I did the examples for straight lines. I'm going to start by adding all the angles that have been given to me. That's 110 and 110. 0 and 0 is 0, 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 1 is 2, gives me 220. Now, instead of taking away from 180, I'm going to take away from 360. So I'm going to do 360, take away 220. 0 take away 0 is 0, 6 take away 2 is 4, 3 take away 2 is 1. So X is 140 degrees. In the next example, you'll see that I've only been given two angles. I need to calculate this value Y, but one of the angles on the diagram hasn't been given. Hopefully you've noticed that this angle is not being made with a curved angle symbol, but instead been made with a square angle symbol, which means this is a right angle, or 90 degrees. So now that I know that this is 90 degrees, I can just work out my angle just like I've done before. I'm going to start by adding up all the angles that have been given to me. That is 105, 125, and 90. 5 and 5 is 10. 2, 9, and 1 is 12. 1, 1, and 1 is 3. Now I need to do 360, take away 320. 0 and 0 is 0. 6 take away 2 is 4. 3 take away 3 is 0. So that means that Y must be 40 degrees. Okay, so again, I've got three practice questions for you to have a go at below. Okay, pause the video, have a go at them, and we'll run through the answers in a moment. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at those. So starting with the first one, remember I'm going to add up all the angles given to me first. So that will give me 215 degrees. Take that away from 360, borrowing, and I get A equaling 145 degrees. The next question, hopefully you identified that square there meant that this was 90 degrees. So again, I'm going to start off by adding up the angles given to me. Okay, so that's going to give me 255. Now I need to do 360 take away 255. Okay, again, I've got to borrow, and I get 105. So B is 105 degrees. Okay, again, in the last question, I've got another right angle there that hasn't been given to me. So I'm going to start off by adding all of the numbers that have been given so far. Okay, 5 and 4 is 9, 8, 2 and 9 is 19. So those all add up to 119. Now I need to do 360, take away 199. Borrowing, I get 10 take away 9 is 1. Borrowing again, 15 take away 9 is 6. 2 take away 1 is 1. So C must be the angle 161 degrees. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you out with these sorts of questions. Remember, there are the two different types of questions, and unless it actually specifically tells you to measure the angle, we're going to be using one of these angle facts. Okay, so practice loads of exam questions, and good luck.